Welcome to the MLB Slate Breakdown. I'm Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay, taking a look at tonight's six-game MLB slate, the 7 o'clock and later games. And it's a small slate. There's some decent pitching options on the hill, which kind of keep you limited as far as hitters go. Overall, though, there's a lot of offense on the board that's kind of constricted to the really three teams that I'm really looking at. I know you're on board as well. Kind of that Baltimore-Toronto game is kind of where we're headed for a lot of the offense tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm especially looking at Toronto. I think they have some pretty interesting stacking options. I mean, I think there are a few other teams. I think Houston's in play for some stacking options. And also I think Detroit is sort of a nice contrarian stack type of move. But yeah, other than that, I mean, on the 6-game slate, it's kind of looking.
Yeah, definitely.
You're heading in a few different directions here.
Yeah. And starting with that Blue Jays-Orioles game, over under 9. Vegas is expecting a ton of runs there. Obviously, in that ballpark, Camden Yards enhances home runs and runs from both sides. As you mentioned, that Blue Jays side with Chris Tillman having the reverse splits, 354 WOBA allowed to right-handers going back to last season. Obviously, those first 5 batters are really in play. Michael Sanders, being a lefty, has slotted up in that leadoff spot. A solid play tonight, even though obviously he's not going to have the splits that guys like Donaldson or Bautista or Encarnacion have, but still a solid play from that left side, especially in that run total.
Yeah, definitely. And like you mentioned, he's a nice third wheel if you're stacking Donaldson and Bautista. What do you think about sort of the catcher position tonight? Is like a Russell Martin in play, or is that just not someone you're looking at?
I like Russell Martin. I think there's not a lot of intriguing options behind the dish. He's more so in play on FanDuel for me because he's 2,600 down there. He's been struggling out of the gate. He's 3,600 on DraftKings. He's your third most expensive catcher. So I'm leaning towards Salvador Perez there, or going down cheaper with a guy like Stephen Vogt. So I think it's just kind of site dependent on me for Martin, and but if he's hitting 6th or so, I don't mind him.
And then Edwin Encarnacion probably in play on both sites.
Yeah, definitely, and he's a little bit more expensive, and if you're kind of leaning off of Arrieta, or say weather gets to that game, I think this Blue Jays team is really where I'm going to be wanting to look. So. On the Orioles side, you got Marco Estrada on the hill. A pretty serviceable arm, not real heavy with any splits, but is capable of giving up a home run or two, especially on the right side there. Left side, 1.25 home runs per 9 to lefties. Chris Davis kind of in play for me as far as GPPs go. Obviously, Camden Yards, big-time ballpark for left-handed power. And Manny Machado, I mean, the guy just keeps raking. Over 400 WOBA against right-handed pitching going back to last year. So his shortstop eligibility on DraftKings just gives him another level there where you could, if you're paying down at pitching tonight in GPPs, you can pair him and Donaldson up. So that's a nice move to possibly look at to really heighten your upside.
Yeah, this is definitely a game where it's sort of not necessarily stacking on one side. You can potentially just stack the whole game, I think obviously with Machado's 13-game hit streak, you're looking at a guy that not necessarily a plug and play, but it seems pretty automatic at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the guy's just absolutely cruising. Yeah, you mentioned the 13-game hit streak, hitting over 400 to start the year, 5 homers and 6 doubles. He's cruising. So, the Orioles are pretty nice. They're a little bit cheaper just in comparison to the Jays, just because you have Joey Ricard up top, who's a bit cheaper. Adam Jones has come down in price, so it's not quite as expensive as the Blue Jays, and there would kind of be a swerve off of those Jays bats. And you might be able to pair even some of those Orioles with an Arrieta going tonight. But yeah, I mean, that's really a game to target. And I know you and I are both trending that way as far as building lineups tonight.
Yeah, definitely.
So next one, we got A's and Yankees, over under of 8, Rich Hill versus Luis Severino. This one in a favorable park for left-handers. Obviously, you got the A's lefty bats. I think make interesting GPP plays, or maybe some one-offs as far as value go. Severino, not a big-time splits guy. Struggle more so with right-handed bats so far in his major league career, allowing a 344 WOBA. Lefties, 301, but still Yankee Stadium, very favorable for left-handers. I think you can take some cheap shots here. Guys like Josh Reddick, Stephen Vogt, Billy Burns, if you want up top. He's pretty cheap on FanDuel still. Kind of in play for me.
Yeah, Vogt and McCann both sort of came up in our optimizer when I looked this morning, so that's definitely a positive indicator for them.
Yeah, I mean, both left-handers, both, hit well in favorable ballparks. McCann absolutely crushes at home. Vogt, kind of the cheaper GPP option of the two there. Coming off a strong game last night, 2 hits with a double. Vogt is a guy who's been pretty reliable as far as power goes from the catcher spot in the previous 2 years. I don't mind him a lot tonight, but overall, I think this game you just kind of want to get a little bit picky with. It's not a full-on stack like the Camden Yards game.
Right, and I think there's a few strong. It's just a stronger slate, so even on a 6-gamer, you're kind of looking at some really strong options in those other 2 games we've been.
Yeah. On the Yankee side, though, you can look at Starlin Castro. Probably going to slide up to that 2 spot again with the lefty on the hill. Has hit lefties well. Just 3,200 on DraftKings makes an intriguing play. A little bit more expensive on FanDuel, sitting at 3,200. But either way, solid play for me. Alex Rodriguez, cheaper, off to a pretty horrible start to start the year, but obviously against a lefty Rich Hill in Yankee Stadium, still worth a tournament look.
Definitely.
So. Outside of that, not looking at too many other options. Aaron Hicks is another name on FanDuel who's pretty much bare minimum. But next one here, you got 7-10 Cubs and Reds. Jake Arrieta versus Brandon Finnegan. Over under a 7. Cubs heavy favorites. Arrieta is my favorite arm tonight, so I won't be taking any Reds against him. As far as the Cubs side go, they have come up in our stack generator quite a bit. Struggled the first time out against Finnegan, but obviously seeing him twice is going to help out. In a friendly ballpark like Cincinnati, there are some favorable names here. Really, you can run through your favorite options because I know you're looking at the Cubs as well tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dexter Fowler is someone that intrigues me. Obviously, Rizzo has that power element, so you're kind of looking at him there if you're stacking. Chris Bryant, I mean, he's been struggling. He's kind of a tough one for me right now because, I mean, I've played him a few times recently just thinking like, okay, well, historically he's going to turn it around. But are you trusting him right now, or is he someone you're sort of fading in a Cubs stack right now?
I think I'm fading. It just depends on where he's slotted in the order. They've been changing it up so much lately. I also think just because Machado and Donaldson are right there kind of closely priced and maybe just the next tier up, I might roll towards them. But I think Bryant's a pretty contrarian play tonight. Lefty on the hill, Great American Ballpark. It's not a bad idea. The only one that I'm not sold on is probably Jason Hayward, who doesn't hit lefties well. But Rizzo, on the other hand, I think he's an interesting move tonight, who's kind of picked it up of late.
Mm-hmm.
So. But really looking at those names, as you mentioned, Fowler, he's a guy who intrigues me a lot tonight. Probably my favorite Cubby on the from this lineup just because he hits lefties so well and he's off to a solid start to the season. But overall, I'm not expecting a ton of games or a ton of runs to be scored here. If it is going to come from this Cubs side. So I think you can work them in as far as cash game goes, more so Fowler. The rest are kind of GPP guys for me.
Right, makes sense. I mean, it is relatively lower. The over-under is quite a bit lower than the bigger games tonight. So
7:15, you got Tigers and Royals. Mike Pelfrey, Edison Volquez, another over-under of 9. KC heavy favorites. This one, I'm really looking at some Royals bats. Obviously, Pelfrey struggled against lefties last season. Allowing a 375 WOBA, 32% hard ball rate. Really, I'm looking at Eric Hosmer, Mike Moustakas, Kendrys Morales, all names, Alex Gordon. I mean, you can run through the entire lineup, and I don't even mind the right-handers as well. Alcides Escobar and Lorenzo Cain. Escobar especially cheap on FanDuel, so if you want to punch shortstop, you can definitely do it with the leadoff guy there. I was a little bit surprised that the Royals didn't pop up in our stack generator. It was on the Tigers side that did. But obviously, I think they have a little more home run power, home run upside. But I think maybe the safer play might be the Royals.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Royals. It is pretty intriguing they didn't pop up, but yeah, I think you're kind of looking at sort of sprinkling them into quite a few lineups, maybe not even necessarily stacking, but just having one or two guys or something like that in maybe a different stacked lineup where you just have one or two of those guys. So yeah, definitely how I'm playing that.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree because you look at the Royals, they had a ton of upside where they rack up a ton of homers, but guys like Eric Hosmer, those names, Salvador Perez, they're all great cash game guys. They don't strike out a ton, a league low strikeout rate. Obviously against Mike Pelfrey, it's a very solid matchup. So yeah, I think definitely they're a cash game team for me tonight. The Tiger side, interesting GPP options, obviously because they're all a little bit lower priced on DraftKings there. And Miguel Cabrera, I mean, he is for just 4,300. He's your sixth most expensive first baseman. And we're talking about one of the best first basemen of all time.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree there. I think both of these teams are pretty reasonably priced tonight, and that's why I think you can sort of sprinkle both of these teams into other stacks, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And if you're going with an Arrieta, Cole type lineup, you're going to have to pay down. But this game is one that you can maybe get some featured options in.
Definitely.
8:05 here, you got Dallas Keuchel, AJ Griffin, another over-under at 9. Houston's strong favorites, minus 157. I'm not a big fan of picking on Keuchel, but he has struggled here. You're looking at this Texas offense, and it's not a great one, but overall, I think it's a pretty solid GPP unit just because Keuchel has struggled on the road here in Arlington. But overall, I think you're mainly looking at this Houston side for a lot of pop who have also come up in our stack generator, and they are some home run potential team.
Definitely. And back to Keuchel for a second. His name's Keuchel, so I instantly don't like him. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a fan of that name. But yeah, getting back to what you were saying, I think in terms of the Astros, Altuve obviously intriguing. George Springer, another guy that popped up on the stack generator, Kobe Rasmus. So you're looking at those three are all intriguing for me tonight.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Carlos Correa, another name that I like in that stack there. Definitely some big-time power, but definitely some big-time prices. So I think they're one that's going to be pretty boom or bust, but AJ Griffin is pretty home run prone. Hasn't pitched a ton in his career just due to injuries, but overall 1.21 home runs per 9 to lefties, 1.7 to right-handers. So there is some pop. Obviously, this ballpark's going to help out with the warm weather as well. Houston, kind of an interesting stack, but also maybe you might want to just get one of those guys into your lineup, just kind of enhance the upside as far as cash games go, so you can fit them in as well.
Right, and again, with a 6-game slate, you're kind of working with a smaller than normal. So I think trying to be contrarian gets a little tougher, but some of these games, like this game right here, I think is a way to sort of differentiate yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And on that Texas side, if I had to pick out anyone, it's probably Adrian Beltre, just because he's crushed left-handers over the last, really throughout his career. And obviously he's having a strong start to the year, hitting over 300. He would probably be the only one I'd take, and he'd probably be the most contrarian from the third baseman side, just because you have Donaldson, Machado, Bryant right above him. I think he's by far the biggest swerve for me.
Interesting. Yeah. No, I like that.
Next game here, we got Pirates and Padres. Garrett Cole, James Shields, over under 6.5. Pittsburgh strong favorites there. I'm looking at Cole as another cash game arm for me, another GPP arm as well. So I'm not really picking on any Padres. Pirates, though, you look at James Shields, really struggled with lefties last year, allowing a 372 WOBA with a 2.04 home runs per 9. A guy that stands out to me is Gregory Polanco. He's probably one of the few Pirates that I like tonight. Hitting 292 to start the year, so much better than last year. 5 extra base hits already on the season, walking a little bit more. I think he's probably my favorite play from this Pirates team. And Petco actually had a decent power park factor for left-handers last year, and it was mainly helped because of Ian Kennedy and James Shields. But overall, I think he's one of my favorite plays on the Pirates side.
Yeah, and back to Cole for a second. When you go through this Padres lineup, it's just it's rough. Like there's not much you're worried about when you go through there. So I think that's a really nice matchup for him.
Yeah, definitely. And one guy to keep an eye on is John Jaso. With that Shields struggle against lefties, Jaso was dirt cheap, just $2,900 on DraftKings there, and then 3,200 on FanDuel. He's more in play on DK because if you are paying up for Cole and Arrieta there, you're going to need some cheap guys. And while you're not getting a premium first baseman, you're also getting a little bit of salary relief and also a player hitting in a good spot who is leading off the game, against James Shields. So I think he's very playable.
Definitely.
So outside of that, I think, the guys on the right side, McCutchen, Marte, more so GPPs. Anyone else you're liking on that Padres side or Pirate side? Sorry.
Not really. I mean, you mentioned McCutchen, but he's not necessarily in MVP form like he was a few years. So I might not necessarily be playing tonight.
Yeah, I definitely agree. But that's going to wrap things up here with the slate breakdown. Check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content.